It's about to get really interesting with Conor McGregor in the UFC. It's about to get really interesting, and it's starting to feel like pandemic 2020 vibes. And what I mean by that is, do you remember there was a time, I remember Amanda Nunes fought Felicia Spencer, and I remember he was going off on Twitter. He was talking about, F this, I'm going to retire, all this stuff. And I remember he called me, and I wrote a whole article for ESPN.com. He retired in 2020 because they wouldn't give him a fight. And they wouldn't give him a fight until they could have some kind of attendance. And that attendance came 2021 in Abu Dhabi, January of 2021 against Dustin Poirier, if you remember. They didn't want to have him at the Apex in front of no one. And so I remind you, when that White House card comes around, June 14th, there will be no pay-per-view. There will be no gate. And what I'm hearing is there's going to be no sponsors as well. So it's going to be it's going to be gigantic as far as brand awareness and whatnot. But as far as sponsors on the cage, it's not going to be like that because White House and you know, it gets a little tricky with that. And so is there a chance that Dana White is doing all of this, you know, we're moving on from Michael Chandler stuff and all this stuff to kind of prepare us for the fact that there's going to be no one for Conor to fight, or that they won't be able to come to terms with Conor? He was asked about Conor's comments on that Roadblock stream. He was asked at the post-fight press conference what he made of it. And he's doing the thing now where I don't hear of anything. I don't buy that for a second. I believe he hears of everything. We live in a day and age where someone could text you a clip and you can watch it in 30 seconds. Come on. What are we talking about here? This is your day-to-day life. I know you've got a lot of other things going on, but it's your day-to-day life. I feel like we're moving in that direction. And I know we've kind of gone from 324 to here, but it's all very intertwined. And I do wonder, I'm not saying Conor will not come back, but they've got a pay-per-view in July. I'm hearing July 11th. Maybe they save him for that and sell tickets and gate and all that stuff and more. I think it's about to get really, really interesting. Now, on this day, when Dana White himself has said, Monday, we're going to start matchmaking this card. And so today they're going to sit down. Are they going to try to find, and I don't know the answer just yet because it's still a little bit early in the game, a way out of Conor because they can't make any money off of this return. There's only so many fights left. 1, 2, 3 max. You know, just historically, he hasn't fought in, you know, almost 5 years. It'll be 5 years in July. Are they going to try to find a way? And so if he is involved, I could see a scenario where it's him versus Paddy. If it's not Chandler, I think it should be Chandler number 1. If it's not Chandler, Paddy's probably number 2 at this point. And then Gaethje fights Ilya, and Arman's going to have to fight someone else because they just don't seem to be huge fans of his. I've kind of fallen on that as far as how I think this is all going to play out. But of course, it can twist and turn a million different ways between now and then. What do you think, Pete?
I think it's probably the most interesting thing he's said in years.
Who?
Conor about the contract situation. I wonder, you know, there was all kinds of talks of unionization and stuff back in the day, and they were like, these are the kind of guys that need to be behind it. Someone like a McGregor, and I don't think he's speaking for a collective. I think he's speaking for himself. But I do think it's very interesting, given that, you know, Volkanovski's on this show talking about pay-per-view points. Nobody really knows what's going to happen. We got the update on the bonuses, and everyone kind of feels like that's that faucet closed now. This is a very interesting position for him to be in. They have never replaced him in terms of being the biggest superstar in the sport. So I think it's just incredibly interesting, the ramifications this contract negotiation, as far as he's concerned, could have on the sport. I don't know if it could, given that it's very individual to him. He brings in so many eyeballs, brings in so much money that they're no longer reliant on. But I think it's very interesting. Look, I don't think McGregor is in a situation where I'd put him as a favorite in any fight right now. But those are fights that, you know, you're talking about Ilya and Arman watching that fight at the weekend. He was definitely watching it, as you say, rubbing his hands together going, I think I could do one of these lads. But of course, they're going to have to come up and fight him at 170. That's one of the stipulations. Like, you kind of have to take whatever road he wants you to go down if you're going to fight him.
Do you agree that of the realistic options, Paddy's probably the biggest? Like, I heard from Shaheen, like, our traffic was insane on Saturday for this fight. Paddy's a big time draw. Dana White said afterwards that this exceeded expectations by double. and we'll see what that means for Saturday, 325. But I feel like of the realistic options and of the potential winnable options, Paddy's probably the best one. Again, I feel like it should be Michael Chandler. I think the way Michael Chandler has been dismissed, I went on the whole rant on Thursday. I'm not going to do it again. I've said my piece on this, but the way he's been dismissed is so disrespectful to him. The guy's done everything and then some to be the ultimate company man. If they are, in fact, for whatever reason, going to move on from him, Paddy is probably the best option. And the fact that he didn't win that fight, the fact that he's not a champion as opposed to Justin Gaethje, I actually feel like increases his chances of getting this fight.
Yeah, and look, he took a hell of a beating there as well. Like, that is not, like, as far as McGregor's concerned, one of the most notorious knockout artists the sport has ever seen. He's like coming off that fight where he's ate so much punishment. Like, as we can see in the picture there, like, this is the most effed up I've ever seen Paddy Pimblett after a fight in my life. He'd be thinking, yeah, this is great. The other thing is, like, it's a tough position for the UFC to be in. Like, we heard what Dana White said about John Jones. Can I rely on John Jones? We all know how active McGregor was in his pomp, but he is not that guy anymore. He has made more money than anyone in the history of the UFC. There is a big issue in terms of, can this guy get through a camp? So if you are completely relying on him being the big sell for the White House, are you willing to do that? Like, what happens if it goes wrong in the same way the Chandler fight did a few years back? Like, that's a serious thing that the UFC have to think about.
Rick, what did you make of the Gaethje situation where on Wednesday he basically says, like, hey, I'm not making any more money for any of this. Daniel Cormier is out here saying I'm making more money. Now, again, we talked about this on Thursday to a degree, but more happened since. Basically, what transpired was Dana White on the Pat McAfee show said, we made him an offer. He didn't respond. All right. Then Gaethje shows up at the press conference and is asked about it and is like, I'm just here to talk about fighting. So clearly someone said something to him, which was a little bit disappointing, but the big dog is sitting right there, so I get it. Then at the post-fight, he does the thing where, like, look, I'm happy, I won. Hopefully I have a good manager who can renegotiate for me now. I'm happy to be here. I have, 15 bonuses. It's tied for the most with Dustin Poirier and Edson Barboza with half the fights. I'm the man. I always deliver. But then also implied, like, it was kind of taken out of context. Like, I don't think anything was taken out of context, to be honest. Like, you sat there and were asked about bonuses, took the question in a different direction and said, I have 14 bonuses that haven't equaled $1 million, and seemed upset that his money didn't go up. I remind you, just because you are entering the Paramount era doesn't mean that all the purses are going to go up. You have existing contracts. They can bump them if they want because there's no rhyme or reason for anything. And the easiest thing to bump were the bonuses. And we did find out on Saturday that the bonuses were increasing from $50K to $100K. So $50K for 2 performance bonuses used to be the deal back in the day, $50K each. Now it's $100K each. And for the 2 combatants in the fight of the night, $100K each. And in addition to that, they've done away with the discretionary bonuses, which were all very kind of loosey-goosey, like, hey, we're gonna hook this guy up, we're gonna do right by him, give you a 5K here, a 10K, a 15K, whatever it is. Now you get a finish, you're getting 25K. Regardless of how you fought in that fight, you get a finish. Doesn't matter what kind of a finish it is, you're getting 25K unless you miss weight. Just ask Alex Perez, who did not get a bonus. So I know there's a lot there, but Rick, what did you make of all of that? Because this is now another story. There's so much going on right now from the new era, the broadcast, and the title, and the White House. But this was another big story that was playing out over the weekend.
I thought it was interesting, but much ado about nothing, because Justin Gaethje doesn't have leverage. And that's a major problem, right? If Justin Gaethje goes out there and, first of all, I had an issue, and I said this on Thursday, it wasn't a shot across the bow. He didn't call out Dana White. He called out Daniel Cormier. And if he really wanted to make a statement, he would have said, Dana White and the UFC are not paying me enough. Instead, he said, well, DC is talking about the money going up, and he kind of deflected it. And then we see in the post-fight, he's again kind of skirting around it. He doesn't have leverage, and he knows it. And again, I said this on Thursday, I will repeat, I'm not blaming Justin Gaethje, nor do I think he should be playing the dangerous game of going directly after the UFC because he does not have leverage. There's only one person whose comments on all of this fighter pay stuff that I care about, and that's Conor McGregor. Well, there's 2 people. There's Dana White, and there's Conor McGregor. And the reason I care about Conor McGregor's thoughts on this is because he's the only one with leverage. When he talks about, on a Roadblock stream, my contract is null and void, he's the only one with the ability to go, no, you actually do need to pay me a different amount because I'm the only one who actually sells pay-per-views. Pay-per-views were down bad last year. I can't imagine there were many champions who were making a ton of money by selling pay-per-views. The UFC obviously wasn't making a ton of money by selling pay-per-views and has pivoted away from that model. And so there's nobody out there who's really going to be too hard done if all of a sudden the UFC is like, we're moving away from pay-per-view. There's going to be some extra money and not ask about it ever again, right? Volk was on talking to you and he kind of didn't know what's going on, but is Volk really going to be the one to rock the boat and do it? There's only one person who stands to benefit in a major way from pay-per-views in 2026 or previously in 2025, and that's Conor McGregor. So when Conor McGregor comes out and says, I need to renegotiate my deal because this is now null and void, that's the only one that's going to have any waves, ripples, anything. There is a realistic scenario where when it comes to the White House, Conor McGregor is the one that says no, right? We're acting like it's just going to be the Dana White's going to be like, do I trust Conor McGregor? What if they come to Conor McGregor with a number that's not sufficiently offset because this pay-per-view is not in place anymore, and he says, take a hike. I'm not fighting for that. I never fought for that. I stand to make so much more money than that, and you're trying to... And we're also in a scenario where the UFC might not need Conor McGregor as much as they used to, which is an even more fascinating thing, right? Because pay-per-view doesn't exist, do you necessarily need somebody like Conor McGregor as much as you needed him when you needed to sell?
Well, I bet you Paramount Plus.
They probably want him, but do they need him? They used to need him. Now they want
$1.1 billion. You need people to sign up for your service without any pay-per-view, and that's why this event isn't going to be on CBS. They're not going to give it away. But this is a long game.
Sure. But in the past, when you needed people to buy, it was one 100%. Night, and you could put Conor McGregor on that poster, and you know that one night you're going to make your money's worth. You don't need him as much now. You might only get 2 fights out of him. Hell, you might not get any fights out of him. So I don't know that they need Conor McGregor in the way that they used to need him. And I think that he's the only one who has the ability to leverage us. So as returning to Justin Gaethje for a second, I didn't really make much of it because, again, I knew that he was going to come out and be like, all's good. He got 2 bonuses. Everything's fine. I'm moving on. His contract's not going to change. Hopefully he has a good manager. But Conor McGregor's comments on the Roadblock stream are the one that I actually thought were interesting.
They do have to offer him 3 fights a year. That's what Dana White always likes to say.
Yeah, for sure.
Thanks for watching this video. Before you go, if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button for us. Also, give us a thumbs up. Leave a nice comment. These things go a long way. And while you're here, do check out the rest of the channel. We've got live shows and full interviews, clips, and a whole lot more. We're doing big things here, and we appreciate your support very much.